Good evening. It's Anastasia Manning here with you and welcome you in our show. Anders Öslund, a businessman who lived in Ukraine for almost 5 years and now operating, as far as I know, 4 companies here.
Well, at least, yeah, some projects and one company, Friday, would be the big company.
And the media company, right?
Yes.
And since you were involved in a media sphere in Ukraine and you've been deeply involved in the revolutionary actions during the latest revolution here in Ukraine, what would you say, what did you see so special about it, and what transformations during this period of time did you see?
It's a big question there, Anastasia.
Yeah.
But first of all, during my years in Ukraine, I was always asking my Ukrainian friends, we have a problem in Ukraine, what do you do about it? And I didn't see so many people doing so much about it. And so November 21st, when I saw that protests started, I decided to join soon thereafter. So I joined Maidan on November 24th. And I understood the values of Maidan, liberal values, European values, anti-corruption, democracy, and that was something that I can totally align myself with, and I decided to do as much as I could on Maidan over the 3 months.
And what did you see, what changed after that? You could see that people, you know, they were suffering a lot during that period of time, and they're suffering still in eastern Ukraine. What do you see did change at this point?
I think that, first of all, we talk mentality. I think that the Ukrainian nationhood has changed. I see people are proud to be Ukrainians. I see that people identify themselves as Ukrainians. Ukrainians have achieved a lot. The Ukrainian nation has become something much more identifiable than compared to before the revolution. Now people get tears in their eyes when they hear the national anthem, and this is now a nation that is unquestionably a nation. It's a nation that people are willing to die for.
I know that you've been giving an interview to the Swedish media recently about what's happening in Ukraine. How do you see the media coverage in Western Europe, and how did you feel that interview? Do you see that most of the journalists do present what's happening in reality, since you see yourself?
I mean, they try, of course, to present some reality, but the knowledge about Ukraine is very, very limited. And I mean, Russia and Putin, they were prepared for this fight. They planned this. They attacked. They had a network of journalists, not real journalists, but propagandists. And they had a lot of people on their payroll, bloggers and thinkers, etc., etc. So they went on the attack, and Ukraine had to respond somehow and spontaneously. Naturally, there's still a big influence from Russia. There's a lot of so-called truths coming out from Russia that penetrate also Western media. But I see a positive change, at least concerning Sweden. I see a positive change that more and more media are starting to understand what evil Russia actually stands for, and what kind of fascist state Russia is.
But they are trying to present Ukrainian side as a fascist, as Prime Minister of Ukraine, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, that they are actually fascists, they are actually Nazis, even if they don't really consider the difference between those two terms. Do you think that that propaganda in Western media, people take it really seriously?
No.
At all?
I mean, first of all, it's pure rubbish that Yatsenyuk or any other leading politician in Ukraine would have any fascist tendencies, first of all. And no, that is not being penetrated in the Western media. What is getting too much attention in the Western media is Pravi sector, for example. I mean, whatever we think about Pravi sector, it's a very, very small group. I mean, Yarosh got 1.7% in the elections.
Exactly.
And
comparing to France, who took 25%.
Exactly. And, by the way, most of these fascist groups in Western Europe have some kind of financial ties to Moscow. We should not forget about that. I consider that most of the Ukrainian nationalists, they are you know, honest, real nationalist as you're supposed to be. You're supposed to defend your motherland. You're supposed to join the army. And you are expected to die for your country. I was expected to die for Sweden when I was in the army. This was unquestionable. Had Russians come invading Sweden, we would have shot them. No questions asked. There wouldn't have been a discussion about it.
And here it is a big discussion.
You come with a foreign flag and a gun and invading another country. What you do is tell the people to drop the guns or we kill you. And if they don't drop the guns, we kill them. And any national of your country, like say for Sweden, for example, who in a wartime would carry the flag of the other country would be considered a traitor and would either be put in prison for life or shot. Simple as that. I don't see why that should be a discussion in Ukraine.
Why do you think it is happening? Because you discussed this problem, how it would be in Sweden if Russia would have anything to do really with Sweden. And we have these problems now in Ukraine. Why do you think there is this big difference? We know, of course, about the media and the media coverage, how they want to present Ukrainian government, etc. But what do you think is the problem here?
The problem is a lot of Russian propaganda, first of all, and then he has managed to sell some kind of image that Ukraine is a split nation, that the Russian speakers of Ukraine has some special values and some attachment to Russia, and we know, both of us, we know that this is absolutely not true. I mean, most business people I know in Kyiv speak Russian. That has nothing to do with being pro-Russia or anything like that. But Putin has managed to sell this idea of division. This idea of division was initially initiated by Stalin as a means to control Ukraine. And this is bogus, and this is not something we should believe in. We should not listen to it. Ukraine is an undivided, united nation, and anybody who is carrying any guns against this nation is either a traitor or invader, and they should be dealt with accordingly.
Do you think that there is still, what I could see, even in German and other medias, that there is a lot of, let's say, Russian-influenced journalists trying to present the situation from what Russian president would love to hear about what's happening here?
He pays them off.
Really?
No, they're corrupt, of course. There's no question about it. I mean, Germany is doing a lot of business with Russia, and so are some other countries. And they're looking to the dollar before anything else, and they have a unfounded fear of Russia because of historical reasons, and they refuse to see the truth.
What do you think are the consequences of this process?
It'll take time. We see exactly the same happen in the 30s. A lot of countries. Even in Sweden, for example, even the Swedish king had sympathies for Germany, and you know, it's a civilized country after all, and you know, Adolf Hitler was building nice freeways for the people, and he gave them jobs and social welfare, etc. A lot of people, it is a little bit like a woman who's being beaten by her husband. You know, I love him still. You know, they overlook the fact that she's being beaten. We have to see the honest truth, and that is that Russia has turned into a fascist state. Putin is an aggressor, and we will not have peace in Europe as long as he is in charge.
And do you think that Europe is going towards that point of view? Because we can see now a lot of politicians in Europe, and moreover, after the recent elections to the European Parliament, it recently became stronger, the support of Russian politics towards Ukraine and Russian politics in general.
Putin has been part of Putin's strategy to affiliate himself with the fascist parties in Western Europe and supporting them financially. That's one thing. But generally speaking, I think that the European population and the more liberal parties are more and more understanding that Russia is becoming a problem, and we will have to deal with it sooner or later. First of all, though, we have to be clear with this. Ukrainians will have to be willing to pay the ultimate price for freedom. When Ukrainians are willing to pay the ultimate price for freedom, this will stop.
What would you see would be the media response of Ukraine to this problem? Because we can see now that Russia, for example, have Russia Today, other media channels, that they are able to speak to the world with those channels of communication. What could be the response of Ukraine, and why do you think it's not happening still? And if you see any change from the revolution, of course it is, but what are the specific features before the revolution and after the revolution in Ukrainian media?
Well, first of all, we have a lot of interesting new media that came through the revolution, low-budget media that broadcasted on Maidan day and night. Secondly, I would like, if I would criticize Ukrainian media, I would say, like, you should avoid to be propagandistic. Stick to the truth and only the truth. Don't report unconfirmed news. That is very important. Because
that's what they say. We have to answer in a propagandistic way so that we could fight Russia. But it's not true in the end.
Well, we have to have a situation where the credibility of Ukrainian media becomes higher. So there we have to be really tough with all Ukrainian journalists that never report anything that is not confirmed. Secondly, and this is something that I brought up already in December, and nobody, of course, wanted to speak about it then, we should have a Russian language channel in Ukraine, a very serious Russian language channel in Ukraine that is broadcasting news about society, news about the world, and it's also should be extremely careful with the truth. And only...
How do you mean extremely careful?
Well, that means
what does
that,
it
that
imply?
means that you double, triple, quadruple check the sources, right? That means that when you invite people for a talk show, you really let all sides be represented. That means that you really address all sides of the question, and you never report rumors, for example. And you really you go over the top to be objective.
And you're not asking the questions that implies an answer already.
Exactly, of course.
What's happening in both Ukrainian and in Russian media sometimes.
No, of course. You should ask hard questions. I mean, you as a journalist should put me on the spot so that I will, really have to defend myself here. And then that's your job. And okay, I'm not a senior politician, but would I be a senior politician, you should really try to nail them, not be polite. And I think that a very strong Russian language media is what this country really needs to broadcast the truth, not only about Ukraine, but also about Belarus and Russia. That would counter the Russian propaganda machine.
I know that you're involved in some media projects. Can you tell more about it, and what is the goals maybe of that?
Well, the media projects you refer to, maybe my Euromaidan PR, for example. I mean, Euromaidan PR was born on Maidan as a way to broadcast news from Maidan in foreign languages. Simple as that. It's nothing special. It's nothing more than that, and has been a rather propagandistic source because it has been taken side of Maidan from the very beginning.
And would you say that there should be something like that in these circumstances, but taking the part of the people who live in eastern Ukraine?
No, we should not take part. We should just report and ask questions, and let the parties answer for themselves.
Because even now we can see, like yesterday in my show, I had this situation when some people say one thing and different people say something completely different. Yeah. But the only thing that is true for all of them is that we want to live in Ukraine, but just stop fighting, both you Ukrainian army and you separatists and Russian terrorists coming here.
Yeah.
Would you say...
then you conclude that.
Yes. Would you say that how can this problem be solved in the media in general? Because we can see, media are trying to get people in fight. They're trying to just report on this point of view or from this point of view.
It's a question of time. The more truthfully you report and the more honest you are and the more you let both sides participate, the more you build credibility. But it doesn't happen overnight. And in a wartime situation, as we are now, it is, of course, very easy for media to take sides. In many countries, it's almost illegal. In American media, for example, they are supposed to take the side of the United States in warfare, in the time of war. And this is not
and it would be legal if they wouldn't do so.
It would be illegal if they didn't report truthfully. It would be considered unpatriotic. And of course we have in Ukraine patriotic media. And bottom line is that we have a war. And we have the Ukrainian nation. It's under attack by people who are representing something else, Russia. Mm-hmm. And most people think that these enemies should be driven out of the country.
How do you see the reactions of the Ukrainian central power, let's say president, prime minister, and the parliament, considering what's happening in eastern Ukraine? Do you think that those actions are actually what the situation needs?
Oh, it's very hard for me to have an opinion. First of all, I think that well, the president has only been a president now for almost a week, but I think that first of all, I'm impressed with the prime minister that he kept his cool and that he's been able to do something during this very tough period. I think that they are, we don't know for sure, but we can assume that they are under heavy pressure from both the United States and the European Union when it comes to their actions to try to keep more balance than they otherwise should. I think that they are pressured into not using as much violence as otherwise could be used. I think that President Poroshenko will soon come under heavy pressure why he is not solving this problem quickly. And I think that unfortunately we should be prepared for a negotiated solution where the traditional relationship with Russia will still play a role.
What role would you say it would be? Would it be the role of the, let's say, a friendly part, as Europe wants to see it, that we can still sit at the table and talk with Russia? Something
like that. I think that we will end up in a situation with Russia where, first of all, we have to stop the violence in the East. It have to stop. People have to stop dying. And then there's going to be a quick attempt to normalize the relationship with Russia. So that will be the same as with Georgia. We will live with the fact that Crimea, which belongs to Ukraine, is not under Ukrainian control, and we will just go on with life and live.
And people will see how it is possible to live, because what I heard is that, you know, not everything that Russia promised to the people in Crimea, it really happens.
Almost
and people
nothing.
Yes, and people see how hard it is to live in that circumstances.
So I think that we should focus on building a strong, good, democratic, open Ukraine, move on, and Russia will do what Russia is doing, but they should not cross the border to Ukraine. That border have to be sealed, and Ukraine will have to become more dependent and integrated with Europe, and just forget about the rest. Crimea will come back to Ukraine one day, but we will just have to move on with our lives for the time being. And naturally, Putin has already destroyed the relationship between Ukrainians and Russians, will not be the same again for hundreds of years.
And what would you say, considering this going further and developing in an economical way? You as a businessman, what development do you see, and what are the possibilities in economical sphere for Ukraine? As far we know that the President Poroshenko, he wants to sign the economical part of the agreement with the European Union on 27th. We'll see if it will happen, but what perspectives do you see for yourself and maybe for other investors and businessmen here in Ukraine?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that Ukraine should stop seeing itself as a beggar. Okay, nice to get support from other countries, but how do we deal without it? And this country has never had a better opportunity for investments than we have right now. The hryvnia is cheap, people are unemployed. We start to see the end of the violence in the East. There's never been a better opportunity to do business with Ukraine and in Ukraine than it is right now. We have a new, fresh government, which means that any investor who comes to Ukraine with some serious effort or serious ideas can have access to ministers, could have access to high-level people, and can get a lot of help to move forward. Ukrainians have shown themselves to be a fantastic people.
Do you feel that yourself?
I don't really have that need. I'm not that big. But let's say that I had a big business, that would certainly be possible. I have personally met 4 ministers of cabinet already. It's not that hard now. I mean, they are open-minded guys, and they do speak English, and they want the best, and they are willing to help. Anybody who want to open a factory, buy farmland, invest in production, service management, whatever, retail, whatever it is.
Loads of work to do.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do, but now it's the time. It's never going to be cheaper. It's never going to be better. And you could recruit some really fantastic Ukrainians now at very low salaries. That situation will change. Ukraine will start grow, and salaries will go up. The hryvnia will stabilize, but now is a golden opportunity to invest.
Let's say we'll finish with this fine point, and I will just remind you that I had this amazing guest, and I'm really pleased to see you in our studio. Anders Öslund, a businessman who lived almost 5 years here in Ukraine, so hopefully your business and everything that you do will prosper here.
Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you, and we'll see each other in a week. Stay in tune.